Welcome to the Enneagram 2.0 podcast. I'm Beatrice Chestnut.
And I'm Uranio Paes.
And today we have a special guest with us, Mark Barcus, who is a social 7. Thanks for being here, Mark.
Thank you. It's really a luxury to have the two of you to myself for a period of time. I've never had that before.
Well, it's reciprocal, and we love you, and you've been doing great work on yourself. So I think our listeners will really benefit from learning from your journey.
Yes. We know that you're someone who's been doing amazing inner work over a long period of time, and you've done some of that work with us. We've had the honor of being witness to that. And, we're really wanting to do interviews with people that we know are really both good exemplars of the type and the subtype so people can learn about that, but also about the growth path and what's been challenging and how to do it and everything like that.
Sure. I'm happy to be a participant.
Great. So, can you start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and maybe how you learned about the Enneagram in the first place?
Sure. So with regard to the Enneagram, I've known about the Enneagram now, almost 35 years, because back in the days of Iron John and the men's groups and all of that, I was in a men's group and someone brought really just a one sheet of paper that described every type in a paragraph. And I decided I was a 9. I'm not a 9. I now know why I thought it was a 9. I used to say, I was just going through a divorce and wanted to be a mediator. And so 9 seemed to be the fit for me in picking something. But I think I'm a social 7, and I now know. And so I think we don't like to see pain in our field of vision. 9s don't like conflict. Sometimes conflict is pain and sometimes it's not. So I used to think I was conflict avoidant. I was pain avoidant. And so I think that's what confused me in that regard. But I'll get to, so I, as a career, I was a judge for 25 years. I was a lawyer before that. I was a school board member. I'm going to describe a lot of social 7 stuff. I was active in nonprofits. I was volunteer. I was president of the Arts and Humanities Council. And I was all this stuff, big community stuff, and became a district judge in Oklahoma. I was a gubernatorial appointee and big, thought of myself as a leader and all of that. But that kind of came crashing down when I lost an election. And I lost it for reasons that I kind of go into when I teach conscious leadership. But it was basically somebody was dissatisfied with a jury verdict, and that lawyer then funded an opponent and ran against me. And people don't know who judges are anyway. And my name was not the one they picked. So I kind of, having devoted myself to the community and devoted myself to my job, and I had been a very active in doing like programs and different kinds of reforming family court and things like that, really kind of throwing myself into that. But suddenly I was kind of at sea, and I didn't really have an identity. I didn't want to go back and be a practicing lawyer. That was never what I really wanted, never where I saw my role. So I went through a period where I was searching and doing other things. At one point in the interim, a charity I was on the board of lost its executive director, and so I stepped into that role as an interim. And so I ran a feeding program and 17 employees for a few months in between. But then I saw an ad for immigration judge, and I knew nothing about immigration, but I knew everything about being a judge. And so I was told my wife, there's this job. The description is all stuff I can do, I think, but it's in the California desert, and there's no job for her there. So about, I guess, 8.5 years ago, I moved to the California desert near the Mexican border to a border court, and I was an immigration judge. So I was over 1,000 miles away from all my family, all my friends, and everybody. So I started like kind of going back to, I'd done a lot of inner work in my early 30s, mid 30s, And I kind of been interested in it. And I would tell people about the Enneagram all that time. I would tell them that it was, this, because what resonated for me was I could tell that people saw the world differently through different lenses. And that's kind of the basic concept of the Enneagram that I had, which is still true. But it's much more, of course, nuanced than that, and technical, or there's a lot of varieties. But so I started back looking at that, and I discovered your book, The Complete Enneagram, which I won a merit badge because I read the whole thing.
Wow.
Uh, but it's a great resource. It's a great resource book, and I've discovered others. Suzanne Stabile had a podcast. I just discovered her and met her and worked with her a little bit, and I discovered Ginger Lapid-Bogda's books and all of that. And in looking at the Enneagram, really looking at it, I discovered I was a 7. Um, I was calling myself a counterphobic 7 because I didn't know why 6s just got to be counterphobic. I was saying, well, my relation to fear is I try to move towards what I'm afraid of and conquer it, which is like what I understand as authority and a 6, a counterphobic 6 would do. So when I read your book and I saw about social 7, that really did, and that's of course a countertype. I'm a big believer in the countertypes because of your work and my lived experience in that regard. So I met you all in Arizona before the pandemic at a workshop you all did, and it was a good workshop. It was one of my early Enneagram workshops, so I was just kind of like, experiencing it. And then like in the last 10 or 15 minutes, you go through all these level of awareness theory that just like you just ran through it really quick. And I was like, wait, what's that? And it really intrigued me. And so I wanted to do you all do retreats, but during the pandemic, you didn't do them in person. So I waited you out until I think I was in the second in-person retreat you did after the pandemic to do the personal development program that you all have. And so for me, the Enneagram was always a personal development thing. I'm not an evangelist for it. I'm an enthusiast. It is so complicated, and has been so complicated for me and in my own inner work that it was hard for me to see. I didn't have an urge to teach or really use it other than just my relation with other people. But as I went through everything, I came to a point about 2 years ago. And by the way, I was within the immigration court system. I then became a chief judge of some courts, and I was involved with teaching judges. And my mentor and at that point supervisor was promoted to chief judge, and she wanted to do. I really admired her. We were friends, and she was a mentor for me. But she wanted to do a training for all the chief judges around the country, people who did the different courts. And she wanted to do, it was a week-long training, but she wanted me to do, she said, a piece on mindfulness. Okay. By which she meant whatever that stuff you go and study is. And so I actually, in one of I think as a kind of I don't know, I think we were maybe doing that inner work thing after retreat 3 or something. But I told you this dilemma. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to teach on mindfulness. It's like, these are all like big wig judges. Am I going to have them like breathe or meditate or like, that's not me. And you suggested the conscious leadership, the 15 commitments of conscious leadership and conscious leadership group. It is bizarre how that was your guest that I heard last week was Diana Chapman and
Yes.
her work. And because that has become an enormous part of the work that I do. I brought that to the chief judges and taught them, and then that went really well. And so then I was asked to bring it to the court administrators and supervisors, and I ended up training over 100 judges in conscious leadership. I ended up training all the court administrators in the United States in it, and
Wow.
system wide. And it became just a thing that we put into all training for the people we were training. It also led to me being promoted to be the chief of training for the immigration court system,
Wow.
which was a great job. And I opened the reason I'm here from California now because we had a new training facility, and we were going to do, it was going to be the West Coast facility. We were going to do DC and West Coast, and we had, the leadership at the time had a robust plan for training, and became a central player in that, and it was great, and it was like the best job I ever had last year when we were doing that. People I admired supervised me. People who were doing great things were happening. We were modernizing the court. We were becoming more efficient. We were also, though, bringing in, immigration judges have a tough job, and they deal with a lot of trauma and stress, not only what they see in front of them, but what they experience. It's a high volume docket. It's a high pressure docket, the people they work with. So we tried to bring kind of that awareness and that consciousness about what the situation was into the training, and it was very successful. On January 20th, you may have heard, we got a new administration, and on that day, everyone above me in the agency was fired. All my mentors and champions and friends that had supported me and kind of put me in this position were gone, and that I'll tell you, and we can talk about this. On that day, I mean, I believe in therapy, and so I have an ongoing therapist. And so I emailed my therapist and I said, I'm really mad. This happened. I'm really mad. I'm really angry. I'm really sad. And I described some of that. And I'm emailing you today because I think by Wednesday, I'll act like nothing's wrong and I'm okay.
Wow.
Because I think that's what I tend to do, and sevens maybe tend to do, and especially maybe social sevens. I don't know if it's specific to our subtype. And so that started a period of real stress within the agency. They put people in place that my immediate supervisor was someone I had just trained the week before. They've had at least 2 temporary chief judges since then. Um, there was, and of course we're hearing everything, and by now they've now fired about 80 or 100 judges since January,
Wow.
and I'm included. So immediately after, like, I think 4 days after you invited me to do this podcast, I got an email saying, you're terminated. That's all
Mm.
it said. That's all
Wow.
it said. And I was never communicated with by anybody or anything like that.
Wow.
This is a story that is common to a lot of my colleagues. Basically almost everyone from the training team has been terminated by now. Many of our judges have been terminated. So as a social, I'm just telling you this because my reaction as a social 7, of course, I've got my own stress and my own trauma, and I'm having to reinvent myself. I have a plan B, and we can talk about that too. Um, but but I had to also notice how much attention I was paying to everyone else's pain
Mm.
and what they're going through, and how I had to kind of consciously. There was not, by the way, nothing I can do about any of that. They're not someone local. They're not someone in my day-to-day life. That would be a little bit different. But I had to kind of consciously keep that at some distance because there are logistical things and there are emotional things that I need to deal with because it's uprooted my life again.
Wow.
So that said, I'm hoping that the work I've done with you and on my own over the last several years puts me in a different position than I felt like when I was out of a job because I'd lost an election before. I feel more powerful and stronger in this now because I don't there's nothing, there's no blame to go around, and there's no shame or anything like that. There's anger and fear, and I do recognize the fear, but there's also a bunch of sadness because we had something really modern and great that was going and growing, and we were in terms of all of that, and there's kind of a grief at loss about what could have been and what our system could have been.
Wow. And I want to note that it's a mark of your inner work that you are focusing on those feelings and telling us about them in very clear terms, and you're aware of them. I think and you've said many things that help people understand right off the bat about what a social seven is, which is a big reason we wanted to interview you, because a social seven is one of the type seven subtypes, and it's the counter type. We often say that, there's for each of the nine types, there are three subtypes depending on which of your instinct is dominant, and there's self-preservation, social, and sexual. And social sevens are the counter type of seven because, like you said, they're a little bit counterphobic. There's a counterphobic six, which is a six that goes against fear. That's the counter type of six. And for seven, social seven, it's a seven that um, really focuses on the pain of others, as you're saying. It's like most sevens are pretty self-referencing. They sort of live a little more with their focus of attention inside themselves, on what they want to do, on how they feel, on maintaining their freedom and having options, and being having creative ideas, and many of the things that sevens focus on. But social seven is uh, a really important subtype of the 27 to understand, because it's person who is very sevenish, as we're hearing in you, very enthusiastic, and can be sort of fast paced and thinking very quickly, and at the same time really focused on, as you said very clearly, avoiding pain in an unconscious way often. But for you, I think you're very conscious of that, but also in taking away the pain of other people, and making the world a better place in the process. And social sevens are among the types that are so devoted to other people and making other people's experience more positive, making other people happy. And we heard that in the work that you do. I mean, judges are dedicated to the community. They play a really important role in different ways. And like you said, being in charge of nonprofits, stepping in to steer an agency if no one else will do it. So we're really hearing, I think, what is in some ways a very beautiful generosity and concern for others and for making things better for society. And we're hearing I really appreciate how aware and conscious you are of all these patterns, because you can really see that this is coming from wanting to take pain away from your field of vision and wanting to avoid pain, which is such an important piece that sometimes sevens in the beginning of their journey don't fully recognize.
I sometimes say like the difference, because sometimes people might be think I was a two because of some of the stuff that
Yeah.
I how I act. But
Yes.
the difference, my illustration is a difference between a two and a social seven is if someone's struggling with their luggage, we both want to help them. But when they say they're okay, I'm good, that's fine. I go on with my day. The two is offended they didn't get to help.
Yeah,
And so
or continue to be worried about the person struggling with
continues
their
to
luggage.
worry. And so, yeah, but the other thing is that underneath that I mean, that's what I am outside, and then underneath it, I am very seven. I am very
That's good.
wanting, a glutton for experience and a glutton for whatever. I mean, and I can feel myself when I'm in stress, being in gluttony. It's not necessarily food. Sometimes it's food. It's I'm kind of aware of the food part, but just the awareness itself, it may not make me quit eating the Oreos, but maybe I have two instead of the whole sleeve, you know?
Yes.
So that awareness comes into it. Um, but I can tell, like I was noticing, because this has been a stressful 6 months leading up to this. And during that time, I planned my kind of like plan B, and I've started a coaching and leadership training practice that I'm now going to just go into full time. But 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 it's that kind of like going through noticing your own stress, because I think sevens sometimes have a hard time recognizing they're in stress. I don't know if that's your experience with other sevens.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, stress can go under the category of the other painful emotions that sevens try not to be aware of. Yeah.
Yeah. And In your beautiful description of your life, especially professionally, I think type 7 shows not only social 7 but all sevens, because there is quite a bit of variety, right? And different things that over time you got engaged with, which has to do with what we call the passion of gluttony. That has to do with variety, not much of one thing. It's a little bit of everything, right? So there were things that I saw, and at the same time, Mark, I think we we also heard you describe something really good for sevens, which is flowing with life and what it brings to you instead of planning too much yourself. So when we talk to other sevens, we see that the seven wants to do this and that, and they are sort of trying to control life. And for you, I think we heard a lot of examples of you going along with what life was bringing, including now that you have been terminated. It's like, you're probably trying to flow with it. Does this make sense to you?
Yeah, it's kind of both. It's like I'm trying not to attach. I still am a planner. I mean, my calendar's right at hand, and I like to like plan things out and have those not goals, but like kind of know. And I like experiences, and so what I've tried to do is I've tried to though enjoy the experiences while I'm having them, savor them, but also give myself permission to have a few things to look forward all the time. If I have nothing to look forward, it's very uncomfortable. But
Uh-huh.
at the same time, Esther Perel on a recent interview said something about after the war, there were two categories of people: the ones that didn't die and the ones that came back to life.
Hmm.
And
Mm,
so I think of it more than that. Life is going to happen to all of us. And what I want to do is I want to bring myself to that's coming instead of letting it just happen to me.
Right.
And like so it has destroyed the thing I wanted. It has destroyed the thing I made or helped make.
Yeah.
Um, and it is very easy, and I think that's where I was when I lost the election. It's like I had no really, like, why would I was working so hard and I was doing good and all of that, and then I just and so life just happened to me and I didn't know what to do, and I kind of like got paralyzed for a while.
mhm,
Whereas now it's like, okay, I have to I'm consciously grieving what I lost, but I'm also like, what can I do today to move the ball forward into what I want to do, which is actually like comes back to the I'm now at a point, and you all just had a seminar, had a webinar, but now I'm at the point where I want to take the Enneagram to other people, and I
Mm.
want to use it for coaching and training and stuff like that. So I'm at a different point, and now I'm in your professional program to get certified,
Yes.
and I'm doing typing interviews and I'm doing things like that, and I'm sharing the Enneagram, and so that's kind of a different mode than my own self-development. It is, first of all, it's helping me because I'm learning more about it as I teach, as I'm sure you all learn when you
Yeah.
teach. But like I'm in a sort of not an Enneagram, but a performance and executive coaching certification at Brown University through ACT Leadership, and I'm the only one in the room that really knows a lot about the Enneagram. So I'm like the local expert, and I'm not an expert at all. And but I find that I'm enjoying sharing that with my colleagues so that it can help them in their coaching and all of that. And so I'm feeling like this is my role now, and I think that this may be my real role that everything was preparing me for. But I'm trying not to get it too attached to, well, it has to be this, it has to look like that. I love California. I don't know if I'm going to stay in California or not. Um, my life is complicated, and California's expensive, and so we'll see if that what happens. But I'm trying to just kind of take life as it's coming
Yeah.
and see what I can make of it.
So it
Mhm.
sounds like at the very least you agreed that that's the way forward for sevens, to allow life to operate as it wants and not as sevens plan.
Sure. I think
Right.
you can. I think you can't get too attached to your planning. Um, and I think sevens. The problem with sevens is that they're attached to their plan, or we're attached to our plan, and then we're always planning. We're in planning mode instead of in experiencing mode.
Mm.
Mhm. Right. Instead of experiencing the present moment, because there's a underlying fear of, well, if I just allow myself to let life happen and I'm just here to experience what's happening, what if it's something unpleasant or painful? Then what do I
Or
do?
what if it's boring?
Or what if it's boring? Exactly, the worst of all. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
It's
when I moved to the desert, I had a friend and I that I was talking to, and I said, "I'm worried. I'm going to the desert. It's a small town on the border. I don't know anyone. I'm afraid I'm going to be bored." And he said, "You've always found a solution to that."
yeah, the seven superpower, I guess.
Right.
Reframing. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Yes, yes. A boring meeting doesn't happen with you in it.
But
Uh,
recognizing that is helpful.
right. And what you say about planning mode and not experiencing mode, I believe also speaks to the head dominance, the mental energy. Preferring, thinking over doing, and which is similar to me, for me, as a five, right? So maybe it also speaks to the centers of intelligence here.
I think it does. I feel I resonate with the monkey mind, thinking of 20 things at once all the time. I resonate with I feel that in my way. And I really do think my next we can talk about developing for the last 3 or 4 years. I've really spent a lot on my repressed instinct, which is a sexual instinct, and trying to bring out that one-to-one instinct. But I think what I need to be moving into next is really getting into my body and being and sensing things in my body, because I think I neglect that. I neglect the sensing part of that and the experiencing part of that. And when I'm there, like I do, I haven't done it in a while, but the ecstatic dancing,
Mm,
that was really very freeing for me. And I like the experience of doing it, but the going to do it, and that I can plan to do it, but the actually then it thinking about it almost just like satisfies me more than the doing it. So I need to remember, actually go do it, actually go work out, actually go exercise.
you can think you've done it if you've just thought about doing it.
I think I'm the kind of person that puts on workout clothes and walks around all day in workout clothes and never works out.
Head types are funny.
uh, I tell B that I like having walked, not walking.
Yeah, I always try to get him to go walking with me, and he says he doesn't like walking, and I'm like, "How can you not like walking?" And then he says, "I like having walked." And so I try to get him to go walking with me for the anticipation of the experience of having walked.
And for me, I'm an extrovert, so the fact that you want to, like, I would go walking with somebody. I will not go walking on my own.
Right.
Oh,
I
interesting.
I need a destination. I need to. I luckily I live in a place where there are things that are about a mile away that and we have weather that you can walk a mile and it be okay.
Mm,
I lived in Dallas and that was not true with the community in Dallas, but
mm.
out here it's pleasant, and so I can have a destination. I'll go walk, but for me to just go for a walk by myself, I won't do it. But if I'm in relationship with somebody and doing it to be in conversation, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But running, I feel this way about running. I loved having run, and I hate going running.
And it sounds like you're also really working on getting into your body, or you know that that's a growth step that will help you to get out of being more head centered.
Right. I know that. I'm not working on it. I'm thinking
Oh, I
about it.
see. Okay, that's right. Thank you for
So
the
I'm
distinction.
so I don't want credit for it. I want, because I haven't done it. I need to not
Ah.
give myself credit for it because I haven't done it. And
Mhm.
and and one another thing, and this relates a little to that, but other. like I heard recently, and I forget who said it, but that sevens want to do the right thing enough so people leave them alone so they have freedom to do what they want.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to set up is other, like when I had a friend that would run with me, I ran every week, ran 6 or 8 miles every week, and it was great. But once that friend was injured and couldn't do their athletic activities that they normally did, so they just ran with slow me. Once they got better and were doing their other stuff, I quit doing that every week,
Mm.
because getting that credit for doing the right thing, um, I think I need someone to expect that I'm exercising, someone else.
Right, right. It's both the extrovert and the social dominant. It's almost like the focus is on everyone around you, not necessarily just you doing what you might need to do. So, can you tell us a little more about one of the what I think can be the most challenging for sevens, which is learning to engage more with your pain? Especially since you've been going through some hardship lately, and it sounds like you said, maybe differently than years ago, you're able to really engage with these different emotions. What do you think has helped you over time to be able to engage more with your pain? And I love how, by the way, I want to say I love how you joke about things as a way almost of like catching yourself in the act. Like telling your therapist like, "Okay, watch out, 2 days from now I won't remember this happened." I mean, which is, sort of a way of signaling, that I know I'm still in this. But how have you made that shift and learned to be more present with the emotions that happen?
I think everything that I'm doing, Enneagram and the conscious leadership, is about really trying to be honest and aware of what's happening. And so with emotions, some Enneagram people will say, well, sevens only have a half range of emotion. We don't experience the negative emotions. We experience the negative emotions. We don't like them. We don't know why fours want to wallow in melancholy. We don't understand why people like that. We experience them, but we try to then climb out of them. Something that I learned in just other research when I was doing the conscious leader, doing my putting a presentation together, and I forget the scientist that did this study, but she said that if we let ourselves experience an emotion, it will go through our body in like 90 seconds or less. Like we will, and the only reason we keep feeling it is we keep reloading it into a cognitive loop, and we're doing that. And so that was, whether it's true or not. I mean, she's a researcher, so I'll take her word for that. But once I kind of had that thought, then it was sort of like, okay, well, let me just like sit with this because it won't be forever if
Yes.
I let it go. And the fact is that it does lessen. Like it does lessen. I feel sadness is easy. I can feel sadness easy. Anger and fear are harder for me to feel. They're still hard for me to feel. Fear a little. I'm getting a little bit better at feeling fear. Anger is almost never anger at a person. It's almost anger at a situation or the world or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, but doing that, um, it's not that I'm reframe. I mean, I think if I'm consciously reframing, it's different than if I'm unconsciously reframing.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so what I'm doing is I'm taking care of it, at least emotionally. I'm recognizing it, and then I'm being aware of where it's affecting me, and is it affecting me? I think my health has been affected by the stress the last 6 months.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm trying to deal with just kind of being more. I mean, I'm conscious of my health, but I'm trying to deal with the things that I'm experiencing. Um, but just kind of bringing that awareness to it. And so I will not. Uh, Now I'm dutiful, so I will sit with someone else and their sadness, but I won't be sad that whole time with them. I
Mhm.
will be I will be a companion, but I will not go in, which is why I'm not a 9 at all, because I don't merge in that
Right.
regard. But it's also part of me at the same time is thinking, I don't understand why they can't. get out of this, you know?
Right, right, right. It's like naturally having escape routes from emotions. And like you're saying, I think sometimes sevens don't relate to fear or they don't feel it too easily, but what they do often fear is being stuck in a negative emotion, and there's a belief it will go on forever, a kind of inner pessimist, as Uranio sometimes says. And so it's like fear of suffering. And I think that's interesting that you read that research about how emotions work, because I think it's true. I think when we resist feeling our emotions constantly, I mean, when we resist feeling our emotions consciously and allowing them to be there and gain the information they bring, then they tend to persist, right? It's almost like if the message can't get delivered, then it keeps knocking at the door. And that's a recipe for the emotion hanging around, even though you're not fully engaging with it. So it sounds like that was really wise. It's like, oh, I'm going to let myself have the experience knowing that it will move through me. So I think that's a great piece of research you cited.
And I think there are like I will recognize that often I will try to do that and I will not do it completely. And
Uh-huh.
so it will come back or whatever. But I think the awareness that's there, even it helps some just time to doing that and experiencing that sadness. You in the webinar you just did, you talked about the sacred emotions, which is a big, I'm very interested in those. And I think I cognitively I'm interested in them, and I feel I brush against them sometimes. I don't think it's hard to get there when you're also living a life, especially a life that's complicated, especially, you know, in being in the world as well. But the sacred emotions really were like your description of them, and you all, I've been in classes where you describe them more fully. Were really, I'm aware of them all the. I'm aware of that all the time,
Mhm.
um, because it goes into what like I'm non-duality is my philosophy, and that's kind of where I come from. I have a tattoo that's the Sanskrit word for non-dual.
Wow.
Um, that I got the word from Richard Rohr in a book, and I found the Sanskrit spelling, and it looked good as a tattoo. So that's where that went.
The truth comes out.
I checked it with like four people that read Sanskrit, so it's accurate. But but
I
but
don't know
part
4
of
people that know Sanskrit. What?
yeah, well, we move in these circles. We know people who know Sanskrit, you know.
Yes.
But the sacred like its relation to non-duality. See, I think a lot of people on non-duality focus on the oneness, we're all one, we're all, and like it's some peaceful thing. It's
Mm,
not a peaceful thing to experience oneness,
not
because if
necessarily.
we're one with everybody.
Mm.
We're
And
one with
everything.
pain. We're one with people that are doing mean things to us, doing mean things in the world. We are that is that but that's real. That's what I feel. I feel that is what non-duality is, and that is what oneness is. And so it is a scary thing. And it is something that you're reacting to the sadness, and you're angry, and you and I feel what you described as the seven, or the social dominant, like being like, God, why are you allowing this suffering? I'm going to do something about it,
Yeah.
right? Um, but I think it is also, again, it's just like being honest about your awareness, and then you go like, that is the world. I can't bring that to everybody. That would hurt them. If I convince people of all this, that would hurt them. I'm not going to do that. But I
Mhm.
can be aware that that's out there, and I can be aware that the suffering is out there. We've gone through a lot in Los Angeles in the last few months,
Yeah.
and frankly, the building I worked in is the place where the Marines were. I mean, we were at the
Wow.
epicenter of all of that,
Wow.
and it's stressful to watch that. It's stressful to watch people inside the building. The Marines, by the way, were all look like teenagers when they were in our cafeteria. They're like really young, skinny guys, in camo carrying assault rifles, but they are children.
Wow.
And so it and to know, and I have friends who are Hispanic that carry their American citizens. Their parents were American citizens. They still carry their passport wherever they go.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of that pain right there,
Yeah.
um, to be aware of. But if I get trapped in that pain, and there are things I can do and things I can't do, and so if I do the things I can, but if I don't live life, then I'm not also experiencing the joy in the world, and which is another. I know you didn't talk about sacred happiness, but like joy is really a significant player in my life.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it's important that we not let that get away either.
Right.
And we can't have one without the other, really.
Yeah, and I want to highlight for a social seven, I find that social sevens tend to be more in touch with pain, whether they like it or not, usually not.
Not
Partly because there is this concern with taking away the pain of the world, and so, in what all you described, around your career and what's happening, there is this sense of like this keen awareness of wanting to make things better for other people, and being really attuned to other people and how they're feeling and what's going on. But I also heard you say, and I think this is important for people to understand, differently than say heart types, when you are dedicating yourself to be with people in their pain as a way of taking it away eventually, hopefully, um, you aren't necessarily feeling pain, right? It's like social sevens almost like try to hold space for others so their pain can go away, to sort of dedicate themselves somehow to creating opportunities or making things better. But that's also part of you wanting to take pain away from your experience. And so I think sometimes people think that social sevens go into that pain all the time, but they don't necessarily, maybe sometimes, especially with working on themselves. But often it's like, no, I'm not feeling it, because in another, psychologically, it's almost a way of projecting your pain out onto others and then trying to fix it for them so that it doesn't have to be something that comes back to you.
And it's almost I don't mean that I'm the parent to these people, but it's almost a parental feeling. I have a daughter, and like when you have a sick child or an upset child or somebody that
Yes.
you're not feel I mean, you're sad for them, but you're also like seeing that there may be other ways to look at it, or to get them out of it, or all of that, but you're kind of like sitting with it, but you're not experiencing what they're experiencing. You may be experiencing a thing, but it's
Right.
not going to be that.
Right, right. Whereas maybe a 4 or a 2, someone who's more of an over empathizer, may, if they're helping someone in pain, they may be really feeling that person's pain, maybe more than they should, like I trained as a therapist and we really had to train to make boundaries and not take that pain home with you.
But be one of the most profound, that first seminar that I took, well, not the first seminar, but the seminar in the program, where you sit in the middle of a circle of like 30 people,
Mhm.
and you sit with whatever pain is coming at you for a couple of days.
As people tell their stories, yeah.
People tell their stories. It was like, um that was amazing to me, to watch you in that moment, or in those moments, because I could I mean, I cried at part of at the end of that. You all didn't know me very well, but the report I got was I'd seen melancholy. Well, that's because I'd sat with people's pain for
Yeah.
5 days, and um but um but I kind of I in a way I really envied your capacity to do that, your two's capacity to do that, because I could have sat in the circle and been with them, but I wouldn't have. You were visibly like with them and feeling what they were feeling and experiencing their stories, and I
Mhm.
admired that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That makes me feel very touched and seen by you. So thank you, Mark.
Mm, yeah. Mark, you've done so much for your self-development. I wonder if you could share with our Type 7 listeners, what you think works best for sevens. What approach or what task would you suggest for sevens?
That's interesting. I think with sevens. maybe with everybody, but with sevens, like whatever you can do to be more honest about yourself and what's going on. And that's awareness, but it's also, it can just be basic honesty about, I mean, you don't have to start with being honest with other people, but start with being honest with yourself about what you're feeling, and whether it's fear or whatever. Um, and to and then move to being honest with other people. Well, one thing I notice in myself still is that it's really, I think what isn't like our the childhood message, like we don't think we're going to be taken care of,
Mm,
that we don't trust that the world will take care of us.
mm,
um Partially that's because we've had experiences where the world didn't take care of us. Partially
Yeah.
it's that.
Yeah.
But I also try to always notice when the world does take care of me, and I
Mhm.
try to like really like highlight that okay, that was something that could have gone badly, but the universe may be in the form of somebody who picked up my credit card and gave it to me, that I
Mm.
dropped it,
Mhm.
or something like little things like that. But let me recognize that sometimes the universe does take care of me,
Mhm.
and so it's also the trying to figure out a way to let people help you and do things for you,
right.
Mhm.
but to articulate what you really want, and not that they're just doing something that makes them feel better, but here's what I really need, and let me articulate it to a friend or to someone in your life that wants to want what when people say, what can I do for you, to a seven, we always say, I'm good, that's fine,
Right.
instead of, well, you could put those groceries away, or you could, or even something small,
Yeah.
or you know I just need a break, or I just need whatever I need. But part of it is identifying what you need too.
Mhm.
um I find that, I mean, the reason I'm drawn to the Enneagram is I wanted to do real, I would talk about that I came into your program really wanting to do a trust fall, and really wanting to really experience whatever it was. But what I like about the Enneagram is it doesn't concentrate like some typing systems or personality systems talk about your strengths, or how good you are, or all of that, and what you need to lean into in that regard. But the Enneagram really does go into the shadow work, and does go into, where your blind spots are, and where your that tough love you were talking about in the seminar. It's like, I think that's great. And Aranya, you're really good at tough love.
Thank you for
You call people, including me, on bullshit sometimes, and so
oh,
that's good.
He's good at that. He wishes I was better at tough love so he wouldn't have to be there doing that 100%
right.
of the time.
But it's also you're also modeling behavior for the rest of us, that we need to do that. That it doesn't. There are times when soothing is called for, but there are times, and I'm bringing more of it into my life now, because I'm doing this performance coaching, and you don't need to pay me to sit with you and tell you how great you are. You need me to be honest with you about what I'm seeing, and help you be honest with you about what you're experiencing. And that's really where the work and the growth is it's actually doing the hard stuff. I would say, for sevens, what's hard for you? Do that,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
What is hard? What is unpleasant for you? Go do some of that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Get in touch with your fear. If it's scary to be in touch with your fear, you know, try to be in touch with your fear, because that's the way out in ways. And that's the way out of suffering as opposed to getting stuck in it.
And I like that in your advice for sevens, you talked about um, putting oneself in the position of having difficult conversations. And when you notice a need, you name it. Also, sometimes this is a difficult conversation for sevens, perhaps even more for social sevens.
Yeah.
It's gotten a lot better. My relationship with my wife is a lot better since I mean, we had, even she's visiting right now, and we had a conversation yesterday, where, and I believe she's never she's not as into the Enneagram. Beast met her in Italy, but she's Enneagram adjacent, but she's not into it like I am. I think she's a self-pres 4. Just that's my lived experience with her for the last 18 years. But she said something that I think in the past I would have just apologized for, but I was able to not just do that. I was able to say, well, here's my I I recognize that's how you experience that. Here's my experience of what was happening. And we were able to have a conversation about it. Where in the past I would have been like, I see she's in pain. Let me calm her pain down, which is hard with the self-pres 4 because they'll just stick with it. And so it's like, but it gave me that ability to to do that. It's still not comfortable. I mean, it's not comfortable for me I would prefer for everybody for me to just take on, you know, the pain. Ironically, she's a self-pres 4, so she takes on other people's burdens all the time. But if we're both taking on and just not talking about it, then we're just both laden and we're not distributing and dissipating what's the pain, I
Right,
think.
right, right. So instead of following that temptation to just say, if she's not happy about something, say, "Oh, I'm sorry," and just making it go away, you opened it up a little more and shared your experience. So it's not only about her, being able to express, it's also about you being able to express, which can be hard for sevens. And I
Yeah.
also know that social sevens have a particularly interesting thing, I think differently than the other sevens, which is couple things. One is more inner conflict because they do feel like this conflict between what I want and what others want, what I need, what others need, what I want to be experiencing, but what I need to do for others. And also a taboo on selfishness. Like a little bit like they smell that in seven, there's a little bit more focus on myself and doing what I want to do and getting, what I want for myself, which can mean other people getting less for themselves or not paying as much attention, and the social seven goes against that
Yeah.
completely, and that's why it's like the counter gluttony kind of person. So
I think we're aware that that we present that way, and then so what happens is not necessarily that we don't do selfish things, but we feel very guilty about them,
yes, you feel bad
we
about
hide them,
it.
and we hide them, and I would say maybe in the past I would again, I do the right thing enough that people would leave me alone, and I'd have freedom to do things I wanted to do, but I wouldn't do those. I didn't feel like I was like I'd be kind of embarrassed that I like this trashy TV show, or I'd be like I'd keep that thing that I'm enjoying kind of away from my public persona.
Yeah.
I think I've done a lot. I mean, I'm pretty free about everything now and talking about what I like and don't like and who I am in the world. But I did experience that, and I think a lot of so my repressed instinct is the one-on-one sexual instinct. So in doing the work on, first of all, I kind of tamping down, like I'm not on any boards anymore. I'm not on committees.
Mm-hmm.
I do volunteer sometimes with things, but like for a limited purpose and all that. And I don't get I resist the pull to volunteer on those other levels. But I also like in developing that one-on-one. That's been a real journey and work for me because I described it last year. I was in Amsterdam at the European Enneagram conference, and a friend was a social seven. She was one of the mistresses of ceremonies, and I was like, okay, I would be perfectly comfortable on that stage running things. The coffee beforehand, I'm a wallflower.
Interesting.
And
Wow.
so it's like people don't understand that I have a problem initiating one-on-one relationships and one-on-one conversations. If I know you, I don't. But it's very, it is even now it's purposeful. What I've done, and I would say if a sexually repressed seven, what you need to do is you need to consciously do it and consciously do it and consciously do it, because you'll notice that it becomes that you become more comfortable. um but even now it's like I love it when someone else initiates the conversation, because it's always, even if I'm taking the risk, it feels like a risk when I'm initiating a conversation or relationship or something.
Yeah, which reminds me of something that's interesting to me about social dominance are that they can sort of they feel safer in a group. They feel safer on stage even because it's like the focus is on everybody, but where the focus is on maybe someone I'm talking to one on one and I don't know them and already haven't established comfort with them, then it's a little bit like, woo, this is vulnerable. This is up close.
Yeah, I think if I hadn't done my work on my repressed instinct, it would be difficult for me to move into the coaching setting. The training
Right.
session setting and the group facilitation, that's great, that's natural. But I think the one-on-one coaching, uh, I think all the work I've done has really like strengthened my ability to be present for one person,
Yeah.
and to initiate that. So I'm hoping that that plays out with my clients.
Yeah, as a
Yeah,
social
for
dominant
sure.
myself, I get you. There is always this preference for, relating with people and not a person. But and I think your journey, your professional journey that you described to us shows that it was pretty social, not only in terms of causes, but also in terms of, you know, the plurality of people around.
Being in an institution, being in a
And
group process,
yeah,
very
and it
important group
gave me a
process.
role. It gave me a defined role,
Yes.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is so what I want. There's a song in Hamilton, "The Room Where It Happened." I want to be
Yeah.
in the room where it happened. That resonates completely. It's like I don't need to be in charge. I hope I'm usually a constructive voice, but what I really want is inclusion in the group and inclusion in the activity. I want to be invited to the party, and so that is a real part of my social instinct, I think.
Right.
Now at the party I may not talk to people. I will now, but I mean I may be awkward at the party, but I want to be included. And feelings, I told you all a story back when in that first inner work seminar that we did, our personal development seminar, but of being excluded as an adolescent and being excluded from a group. And that story was resonant for actually telling the story kind of dissipated its pull on me. So I kind of like getting that out and telling someone that I'd never told, about that exclusion was like, okay, that doesn't define me. That was just,
Right.
that wasn't about me. That was about the people excluding me. That wasn't about, all of that.
Yeah.
But I will say the other thing about the conscious leadership, and B, you led me to that conscious leadership. So that's why it's so interesting that this is circling back around. But one of the tenets of it is to try not to find approval outside your source approval outside yourself.
Mhm.
And I taught that for a while, and then I finally had an experience of it. And now I really believe in that. And I really try not to source approval outwardly. I like approval,
Yeah.
but if I need approval and I get it, I just got what I needed. If I don't need it and I get it, it's something special. And so just working on my own self approval and making sure that I'm true and authentic and doing what I need and focusing on that has really helped me like not chase an identity or chase something. I have a very full resume. Okay.
Mhm.
I have lots of things that I've done.
Mhm.
I don't need to build a resume anymore. I don't need to, have that kind of like image thing. I want people to like me, but what I really want is I want to be myself and draw people who want to work with this, who
Mhm.
want to interact with this.
Right.
Because I think I'm a nice guy. I know I'm a kind person and all that. And I think that if I just let people who don't like that stay at bay, I don't have to convince them. You know.
Right. Right. You're reminding me of one last thing I want to ask you about because I think we've covered a lot of great ground. Is I know that social sevens have something about being seen as being good, either by themselves or others or maybe both. It's like it's the gluttony. It's not, the passion of gluttony for sevens is, about many things, but for a social seven, it's about being perceived as like a good person or a virtuous person somehow, pure, purely good. How does that show up for you?
So I think that was really a big part of my identity for most of my life. And I think social sevens are so good at it that it's hard to turn it off. It's hard to turn other people's perception of that off.
Hmm.
I remember when I a friend of mine, I had when I had been appointed by the governor, and I was kind of a bigger deal for a moment in my local community. A friend of mine who I love, she said, "Everyone's saying Mark's so nice. Mark's so nice. You're not nice." Because she was someone I could be like funny with and all that, and I
Yeah,
took that as like the biggest compliment because it's like you're right. That's not really who. I
that's
mean,
not
I
all of
am
who I am.
I
Yeah,
am nice, but that's not all of who I am.
yeah.
And so I think I've pushed against it with sense of humor, with kind of I can have a wicked sense of humor, especially in a private setting. I
Mhm.
try not to let it be too. Um, I mean, I really think it's been less at the expense of others in recent years than it probably used to be. I try not to make fun of other people as much, although I may point out funny things they did or kind of nutty things that how they're being, but in a playful way and not in a "you're not worthy" kind of way. But at the same time, I'm not totally good on that, and I will succumb sometimes to a joke about somebody.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's something we do so automatically that we're not always conscious that that's what we want, and then when we confront it, we're like, that's not all that I am. You know,
Right.
that's not all that I am.
Great. That's
Yeah.
incredibly thorough and deep
Yes.
explanation of your experience. So I really appreciate that.
Yes, me
Ronnie,
Sure.
too. A
any
lot.
last thoughts for you? Yeah, yeah.
No,
Okay.
just if Mark wants to add anything we didn't cover.
Anything we haven't asked about that you think would be good for people to know about Social Seven?
Well, I don't know this about social sevens, but this is about the Enneagram. And this
Yeah,
is something that I'm feeling is they say it used to be a secret wisdom.
yeah.
I think it's still a secret wisdom.
Mm,
I think that there's a lot of people who have heard of the Enneagram and know a little bit about the Enneagram, but until you really get into the work, there's secrets, and you really have to work to get to those secrets. It's been my experience.
mm. Wow, that's beautiful. It makes a lot of sense. It's almost like you have to work to see how the Enneagram really works. Because unless you're really willing to allow your ego to be confronted, a little bit of that tough love or seeing the blind spots, it's almost like you don't really engage with what the Enneagram can be or what it's really about. So that's beautiful.
You all have been such a big part of my life. I love you both.
Mm.
You've been made a profound. I mean, it's been transformational. The work and experiencing this with you has been really special. And
Mhm.
I thank you both for everything you've done for me and for other people, but for me specifically, I'll be selfish for me to do.
Good, good, good. Well, thank you, Mark. The feeling's very mutual. So
Yes.
thank you. And thank you for being here with
Yes.
us for this conversation.
Yeah, it's always very lovely to talk to you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
So that concludes this episode of the Enneagram 2.0 podcast. We hope you'll join us again next time for the Enneagram 2.0 podcast, where we talk about all things Enneagram.